energy. It is all around us, both seen and unseen. It affects all the lives within humanity, our great planet Earth, and the entire universe. It is a conscious cosmic matrix, an ever-evolving cycle, creating, breaking down, and recreating. This is Connected with your host, Andrea Dragonfly. Andrea tells us that energy is the foundation of our human experience, intrinsically affecting every facet of our lives, our perceptions, choices, and actions, as well as the challenges, opportunities, and people we attract. So now, please welcome the host of Connected, Andrea Dragonfly.
Hello, good people. Welcome. Welcome to another episode of Connected. I'm your host, Andrea Dragonfly. And for those of you who may just be showing up for the first time, or those who are following along with me, I just would like to say that this is a show about energy, about looking about how energy is the foundation of our experience. And so we are on a journey here where we are looking at ourselves in particular. Who are we as energy beings? And how are we relating to the rest of the world and the energy that is coming back at us? What are we attracting to us? And what are we putting out there? So it's a conversation of the complexity of energy. And also, there's some topics that we are getting into that are not our normal dominant cultural understandings. It's not what we tend to, know already. So this is a conversation where I'm going to be bringing different concepts to light. A lot of this is some ancient wisdom that's been around through sacred texts, through lost information, hidden knowledge. And, a lot of this at some point in history has also been, sought to be destroyed. Much of it has been destroyed throughout different periods of time. And so this is the conversation of bringing it back into our modern current day. And the beautiful part of this is that a lot of the ancient wisdom is already held within many of what I call the wisdom keepers. And the wisdom keepers come from different spiritual traditions. And currently, within the last decade plus, all of our cutting edge sciences, such as neuroscience and epigenetics and depth psychology and these sciences that are coming out, they're showing that what we're talking about actually now can be proven. So this is a great time of bringing this information forward, because what we're finding in our cutting edge sciences right now have already existed, and that we are shedding the light, bringing us into this new stage of humanity. Because as I've been saying in past shows, we're shifting. Humanity is shifting into this new, more awakened place of consciousness. And so this is a conversation about expanding that consciousness. And also, I am no expert in a lot of this. However, I've been a student for 30 years. And so I'm bringing to you the conversation for you to work with. This is an individual journey. So even if you're watching this with a significant partner, or maybe you've invited friends to watch this as well, and you have these discussions, each person is going to receive this information very individually, because we have what's called our own energy makeup. And that makeup is made up of our energy, I call it alchemy, like the mix of all that we are and our life experiences. What are we exposed to? What have we been exposed to? And then also the different unique experiences each one of us has. So we're going to have, a different lens, each one of us. So it's an invitation to take what you already know. So if I'm talking about something and you already have information about it, bring this in, allow it to inform you and expand what you already know. There's many ways for us to talk about consciousness, because the energy that we're talking about in these shows is all connected to us expanding our consciousness and making these connections that maybe we wouldn't have made before. Maybe we just never thought about it. So this is what this show is really all about, is bringing this information so that each person can make their own connections and get connected. So, like all shows, I do a little bit of a review so that we can tie in what was done last week into what we're going to be talking about this week. So last week, we were looking at reincarnation and spirit evolution. And I was tying that into the chakra system and energy imprints and even energy magnetism, about how we're drawing certain experiences to us. And I began to talk about the complexity of death to life, because this is a conversation. This is also found in Theosophy. I spoke about Rudolf Steiner being one of the wisdom teachers of this, along with Helena Blavatsky, and there are other theosophists also that are connected in to this level of understanding of where, of what we don't already know, what's not dominantly in the culture for our knowledge. It's just not available for us because we are very much governed in the Western world by the three dominant, well, I'm going to just try to say in the Western world, we are very much having the Christian ideology and cosmology being the dominant belief system. And of course, then within the Abrahamic tradition, there is Christianity, there is Judaism or Judaism, and then there's Islam. And so within the Western world, we have been more or less programmed within the Christian ideology, whether you follow that or not, whether you are a recovering person from, the belief system that didn't work for you, or maybe you're even deeply invested and it really does work for you, but we're all on this path, we're all on this journey. And so bringing in the conversation of reincarnation and looking at, what happens when we die, which, just a quick review, is that, again, we shed our physical body. And we have what's connected to our physical body is what's also known as the etheric body. And the etheric body is that part of us that is like cosmic memory. It goes, some people might know the Akashic record. Others will connect it to the cosmic memory. And there's different ways we can talk about these things. So, if this sounds familiar and you have another word that's come up through your exposure, just add it to the knowledge, is that whatever we've done in our lives will get categorized. It still exists in the energy field, and it exists what's called in cosmic memory or the Akashic records. And that's part of the etheric body. And then our astral body moves, in a sense, we can say upward, where we then go through a period of time where we reconnect with every emotional or even strong mental perspective, judgment, belief system, whatever, and about how we've made other people feel. So if we made other people feel joyful and loved, and we have that really beautiful quality of being, a positive person in people's lives, we can also experience that about how we've affected other people in life. But if we had those moments, even where we've hurt other people, where we were cruel or mean and disrespectful, then we're going to also feel that. And if we have a lifetime where that is the general energy of that lifetime, because we have a pretty diverse world out there, and there's a lot of cruel and evil people out there that are doing horrific things to others, whether it's one or many. So they will go and experience the effect that they had on those people to the same degree that they had given it. And there's a period of time, and of course this period of time is questionable. This is why I invite you to work with this, let it sink into you, invite it to inform you, because there are lots of stories even with children, and I think that this will be one of our other shows coming up, but even small children who don't know what the whole world is about are talking about having these past lives and can give very full accounts of past experiences in another lifetime. So, so the duration of how long we spend when we go into this astral place, and I talked about how there's a name for it. It's called pralaya. Nope, I'm sorry, it's not called pralaya. Oh my goodness, I don't have it in my notes today either. It's called Kamaloka. Pralaya is a different thing. But it's called Kamaloka, where we're going to spend a significant amount of time reconnecting with who we were in this last lifetime. And then we shed through the astral body, and this is also where our ego lives. The ego is part of the astral experience. And the astral experience is about our minds, our belief systems, our thoughts, whether they're very strong and this is the way that it is, without the opportunity for others to be different, or very strong. Again, I'm talking about mind perspectives, right? So this is where all the isms, where we are separating ourselves from others on a mental note, where we think we might be better than another person, right? So this is where we're going to have a reflection of that in Kamaloka. It's also a place where we're going to connect into the emotional aspects of it all. So when we move through that, and our ego is connected to that, and we're going to talk about ego today. So that's why I'm bringing this back up, is that the ego is part of that personality, that I individuality, and our egos throughout our incarnations are going to be slightly different based on what it is that we're coming into the new life for, right? When we shed the astral body, our spirit goes up to what's called the Devachan or Devachan, depending on how we pronounce things. And this is where we get to return to being our full exalted spiritual self, our oneness, our allness, and connect into the higher consciousness of the all. And we, many people can call this many different names. And so for different, belief systems, this is, it could be the heaven, it could be the nirvana, it could be, the oneness. And so this is the place that we get to reconnect to being the pure oneness of all things, back to our full, beautiful, creative creation selves. And so this is where we spend a little time, which can also be called some time of grace, where we can get ourselves ready to come back and do it all over again. And on our journey back down, we pick up the ego. We pick up a new ego. We pick up this new ego that's going to give us the personality traits that are needed for this next journey, because we're also going to be picking up the astral body, the soul body, and the soul is that part that's going to bring us to the places that we need, the people that are going to be important players of the new life, the events, the situations, the circumstances that we're going to need to be presented with to have the opportunity to grow from. And then we pick up an etheric body again that's going to hold some of those imprints that we had in the last lifetime, that's going to bring us as well into this next life to overcome those. And then we get this new body. So we're looking at this whole process. And again, I am just doing this review, and even within this review, it's going to lead us directly into looking at the ego and the unique part that the ego plays in our human experience. So we're going to go ahead and take a quick break, and when we get back, we're going to jump right into it. So we'll talk to you in just a couple minutes.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Welcome back. So we are getting ready to dive into ego development and connecting that into the spirit evolution. So with spirit evolution, each lifetime, again, is this opportunity for us to look, for us to take the obstacles, the challenges, the difficulties that come our way and be able to overcome them in some new experience to the world that allows us to kind of clear these wounds, these imprints. And then this is also a huge part of this process is really connected to the ego. And it is said that at this time of humanity, that we are evolving. And if we look at the beginning of humanity, and even our timeline is a little skewed, and we don't even know where we even want to identify where the beginning of humanity comes from, because there's lots of different conversations about that. And I will share that in a future show. So this is a complex conversation because I'm taking our current situation and making it valid for right now, right? But it does come from the whole lineage, from the beginning of humans coming into consciousness. But at this time of humanity, this is known as the time of the ego development. And what that means is that we have our ego, and our ego, this is a conversation that's outside of we can apply it to psychology, ego, but it's a little different from that. And so the way that I'm going to define it is that, of course, our ego is that part of ourselves that's all about our self-preservation. It can be seen as how we see ourselves. So it's our self-importance or our self-worth. And it's about our unique human journey, about the self, about the me. And so when we talk about the ego, there's actually there's two forms of the ego. I'm going to call it the lower ego. And the lower ego is what we're all conscious of. It's I want what I want for me. And if I don't get what I want, then I'm going to be confronted. And there's all sorts of different kinds of people, and each person is going to respond differently. Some people are going to actually fight for what they want, right? And other people are going to figure out how to get what they want. And other people are going to be like, oh, I can't ever get what I want, I'm going to give up, right? So there's this whole spectrum, and we can even look at that back in the the energy self-perception chart, how we have these different energies as to how do we come to conflict, how do we meet our experiences to the world. And so with the lower ego, this is really about recognizing what we want for ourselves. And so you can also see this when we talk about, oh, that person's very egoic. That person really loves themselves and they really value themselves. And they're like, look at me and look at how awesome I am. And look what I've accomplished, or look what look what I have and I bought. So there's all of these things about the look at me, right? And so this is part of our lower ego. Now, there's also what's called the higher ego. And the higher ego actually comes through the development of the lower ego. When we recognize that it's not just all about me, but it's also about those that I care about, then it becomes part of the higher ego. We kind of move it into this next place of the higher ego, which then becomes the we. And we can look at this within ourselves, within, let's say, our significant people. It could be our partners, our family, right? Or our community, depending on where you are with, partners and family, right? So what's most significant? Who are your most significant people? So when we're thinking, I invite you to think about what that's like for yourself. Like if you want something for you, absolutely. And how can you also then bring it into the next level, that the people that also want something for themselves, that everybody can kind of arrive and get what they want? It's like a win-win. It's not just a win for me, I win, you lose. It's how can we all win together? And we can begin to look at this within different systems of our world, right? Even systems within our family. How does each other work out what everybody needs? How does everybody's needs get met, right? And how do people then get their wants and desires met, if that's even possible, right? And then we can look into how does this work in businesses? How does this work in nonprofits? How does this work in government, right? So there's these different parts and pieces that begin to expand. And these are also known as fractals. And we're going to have a whole show on fractals to get you really clear on exactly how fractals work. But we can begin to see it in this system within myself. How does it work for me and the people that I love? How does it work for my family? How does it work for my community? And then we can begin to see this growing. And this becomes the higher ego, because we still get what we want, but we then also allow other people to get what they want too. It's not a selfish, it's a selfless, but we all still get what we want. So when it comes back to the lower ego, it's the me. It's the all about me, and I want what I want, and I don't care about you. So when we think about business and we think about what it's like to be in the world, we have what's called the dog eat dog world out there. It's like, I'm going to get what I want, and I don't care if you get what you want. But this is about how do we expand? How we are in this phase of development about growing our ego, about moving it out of just the me into a greater sense of, okay, how do I still get what I want and others get what they want, into the we. And that's the shifting. There's this evolution piece that comes with this. When I speak about evolution, I want to talk about life, death, rebirth. And life, death, rebirth, again, we can see that in reincarnation through lifetimes. However, I'm also going to bring it in to our everyday life and how we have what's called mini deaths, where we have, let's say, a relationship. And even when you're a teenager, right? Maybe you have your very first relationship. And so here we are coming into this new relationship, and then you are dating, but you then have to go different ways. And then the relationship ends. So then there is a death in that relationship, but you still are learning something. Maybe your heart's broken for the first time. Maybe you find somebody else interesting and you break up that relationship and you move on to something else. So we're being given these opportunities to learn about ourselves, to learn about the process. And from our childhood, we have many, many, many of these. And sometimes they're even known as initiations, that we're being initiated into a new perspective, a new way of life. And if we repeat these cycles, and we can even, like, every opportunity is an opportunity to do something different, to rise above. When we get stuck into these loops where maybe, let's say, a person has, maybe they have low self-esteem or low self-worth, and they are being taken advantage of in their relationship, or we can even say in a work environment. So we're going to put it into these two different categories: relationship, work environment. And so they're giving these opportunities over and over again. This is part of the initiation that says at some point there has to be a different choice, because ultimately we want to rise into being able to get what we want. And if we've not ever gotten what we wanted in our lives, then now is the time for us to reconsider and figure out, what do I need to do different so that I can get that, right? And so this is this part of how we are coming in to this development of the ego, because it's not always just about what I want. It's also what's best for the greater good of those that are closest to me, or the greater good for the business. Maybe you're a business owner of some, or, but also even us looking at politics right now. I'm going to state that my work has me on the fence. I'm not political in where I am, going to be talking about what right or wrong or good or bad. But what I am going to talk about is the energy behind it. I'm going to talk about how we can begin to look at how energy is the connection point. When we have, when we only want for ourselves, and we are going to take what we want at all costs because we don't care about other people, we are actually accruing what would be considered to be negative energy. It's an energy that's very selfish. And we can even look at people in the world that do this, people who are abusive. They want what they want, and they're going to do what they do, and they're going to react in the way that they react to get what they want. And so this is at the cost of other people's free will or consent, right? And so it comes down to the fact that where we are in life is really about free will. And it's about freedom and choice. And we all get to make these choices because we're all on the individual journey. And we don't have to agree or support or even like the choices that other people are making. But what we invite you to do is recognize that they're on their own journey, and that within this reincarnation, within this ego development and spirit evolution, this is where we talk about karma's going to get you, right? Karma's going to come back, and karma's going to have you have your experience with that. And this is where we're kind of leading into. We're going to be leading into a much deeper conversation about karma. It's not tonight, but we're going to be looking at how karma is cause and effect. What have I done? My energy and what I put out has an effect, and that effect will come back at me. And I'm going to go into a much more detailed conversation about karma. But I also want to bring into the fact that when we look at these things, when we look at this ego, there's also an energy that comes with it. And we can talk about the evils of the world. And this is going to be its very own show. I'm going to go into detail around it. Because there's two very distinct spiritual forces that are coming in to test our egos, that are coming in to really give us these opportunities to make choices on free will and our freedom. And so I want to just say that most of humanity is a little oblivious to this, that we're unconscious to this. It's not something that we're taught or even told. And so it's coming to you here for you to ponder, to play with, to be with. Let it inform you. But we're going to take a quick break. And when we get back, I want to remind you that this is an open phone line. So I'm bringing huge concepts in that you might struggle with and you might have questions around, or maybe you want some clarity. You are welcome to call the number below, and we can certainly begin. I can clarify anything on the screen. And then we can also jump in to even understand what these spiritual forces are when we get back from this commercial. I'll see you in a couple.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like, it was almost instant. Like, I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic on the BBM Global Network, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Welcome back. So we are diving deep into the conversation of ego development and about how our wants, our desires are going to be, they're part of our driving force. They bring us to what we want in life, right? And so when we're looking at this and we're looking at them, being this driving force, that they are being given the opportunity. We're being given the opportunity. So it's through our egos that we're making these different choices. When we're completely unconscious, we can just kind of get back into that place that says, oh, but I want it for me. What can I do for me? And so bringing that into a place of mindfulness. And so mindfulness is a huge practice. It's a huge spiritual practice, especially in the conscious world. And that mindfulness is that place where we cultivate the observer within, where we can be in this place that says, okay, well, what's the scenario? What's happening here? What is it that I really need for myself? And what is it for other people to need as well? But we also live in a world that isn't very mindful. But we begin with ourselves. We begin by inspiring others to be mindful with themselves. And we can bring in this development where we become more and more accustomed to connecting into that higher ego, seeing things from a higher perspective. Now, I mentioned how there's these two forces. There's these forces that are really here to actually grow us in ways. And when I say forces, I want you to think about energetics that like planetary movements, planetary forces. But also we can think about plate tectonics and how the forces of these plates create like mountains, the Pacific plate line of California and the plate tectonic had created the Sierra Nevadas and even the Rocky Mountains because of the way that the pressure had been put on it. Now, that's just an example of force, right? We're looking at force from this place. Now, there's two forces that are spiritual forces, and they have names, and we're going to go into a really deep discussion about both of them. And one of them is the Luciferic force. And many people can relate to the fallen angel Lucifer and the biblical stories. And there is tie-in there. However, we're not looking at it from this fallen angel. We're going to look at it from an energetic force of temptation. And this is this inner force that lives within us. This is part of what many of within Christianity talks about original sin, is that this is a force that lives within us that's going to tempt us. It's going to tempt us to be selfish. It's going to tempt us to do for ourselves. And it's going to and be enticing and say, oh, isn't this not good, And this is where we're being tested. This is where our lower ego is being tested. Am I going to fall into that and take the bait and go into that selfish way? And when we're looking at that, I just want to say that the spectrum of that is so broad. We can talk about within relationships. It can even just be having an affair on your partner, but it can also be like all of the different abuses, financial abuse. We can even look at, society and and of course this lives in many parts of it. So it can even live in the families and extended families, and it can live in communities, but sexual abuse, it can, be with people that we don't even know. So these are things that people just they take what they want for themselves without really understanding the longer impact of what that will mean for them. Right. And so this is parts of where we begin to see these horrors of the world come out. These are, if it's for one person's benefit, then this is that kind of Luciferic force of temptation. And again, it can be stealing, embezzlement, power, where people do this for all sorts of reasons. But the reasons is somewhere within their line of what brings them pleasure. And pleasure, of course, isn't a bad thing, for the most part, as long as it's free will, freedom, and consent, if that person's doing it, with another person, right? So it's I want to make it very clear that these temptations are really actually about taking away the freedom of others. And it's about power and control and manipulation in some way. Now, the other force, and I just want to say that this comes internally, this comes from within. There's that, ooh, can I do that? We talk about the devil on the one shoulder and the angel on the other shoulder for many of people who have had those stories. That's the devil. That's that internal temptation to take for oneself without, honoring or respecting those around them. And then there's another energetic force that actually comes from the outside, and it pressurizes us downward. So it's an external force, where the Luciferic force is an internal force. And this external force is called an Ahrimanic force. And again, I want to talk more in depth about each one of these. But this is force about judgment. This is about right or wrong or good or bad, and about what people believe on a larger collective level. And so this is about how people come together, and this is how the isms are created, right? So whether it's racism or sexism or ageism and all the different isms about how one person's better than another person. This is about the development of the ego. Because ultimately, we are all spiritual beings having these human experiences, and I'm sure you've heard that in other places. But this is about how we are being um, how we're experiencing the world. And so we can have these, we can get caught up in these judgments. And these judgments are about what we want for the greater good of everybody, right? And we can even get into the LGBT community and how there's such controversies over, their safety and whether they should even be able to, identify in a different gender. And, the list goes on. But this is also this part of this judgment that says my belief is superior to yours. And this is where we have so much of it in our programmed cultures, which creates systemic violence even against others. This is about separation. This is about us and you, but not us together as a we and a whole. Because we are everything. When we reincarnate and we have these different spirit evolutions, we are going to be all the different parts and pieces, and wherever you are in your journey is part of the development of that. And again, it's this ego that says that I only want what I want for me. This is the lower ego. And on the spiritual journey, we're looking at having to develop that into the higher ego where we still get what we want, but our want becomes more expansive. We recognize that it's not just me and the 1 million people that might believe this, but it's about, okay, there's 8 billion people on the planet. And of course, we're all coming from different cultures and stuff. However, this is how we begin to move into these higher perspectives, into the more higher conscious realms. Spiritual teachers, gurus, they know that they've already gone through all of these different lifetimes, that and it's through unconditional love and compassion and forgiveness that each person is on their own journey. And it's through the compassion of knowing that they're on that journey, and that it's through their ego development, even as to when they're going to arrive into this new place for them to actually expand. So we get to, so this is the opportunity. And again, this is a very complex conversation. I'm bringing it to you because there's so many extra parts and pieces that play along with this. There's so many more connections that go with this conversation. And so bringing it back in is that, when we go through the whole human experience, when we are that person that's done horrible things, and we've learned how to actually, through multiple lifetimes that have happened after that, we've learned how horrible those things really were. It's a learning opportunity. So the people who are doing horrific things at this time, we can give compassion because they're on the journey. They're going to get it back. They're going to be at the effect of their own actions at some point. And so this is where we begin to see that we have these two forces. And I always say that one of the this is one of the things that I think. This is one of my beliefs. This is one of my beliefs is that that one of the greatest possible sicknesses. I don't say potential. It's kind of like plagues. That's the word I want. The plague of humanity is judgment. And those who those who harshly judge are the ones that are most at the effect of it. And so it's, there is this beautiful saying by the Leica shamans in particular. And they say that the root of all illness, sickness, has, there's 2 roots to all illness. And one of them is fear, and the other one is envy. And they fall both in this place of judgment. And fear is this place of feeling like, oh, that's bad. I can't do that, But fear is also that place, fear is beautiful conversation and is definitely going to have its own full show at one point too. But this is where we begin to look at how judgment plays such a significant role in our human experience. You know, if you walked through life knowing that you were never going to be judged, or had no fear of being judged, or had no envy of judging others, what would your life look like? How would it be different? So we're going to take another quick 2-minute commercial, and we're going to get back here and we're going to dive a little bit deeper into that. So if you have any questions, again, you can write them out or you can make a phone call. Thank you.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like it was almost instant. Like I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. You know, it feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic on the BBM Global Network, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical. What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation.
Welcome back. So we're looking at the ego development, and we're looking at it from this place of these two energetic forces. An harmonic force that's an external force that comes down upon us. It's pressurizing us. We can see it in culture. We can see it in this is what you're supposed to do. And if you don't follow these rules, then there's also this almost level of punishment. And this is where humanity has been living for several millennia, right? So we've been living with these very harsh rules. And when I talk about how this is an opportunity, we're living at this time where it's about free will. It's about freedom and choice. That we're moving into this place where we begin to question, is everything that I've been taught and told that says you have to do it this way truth? Is that really true? And if I do it that way, and I really truly believe something else is actually more in a harmonic relationship with the world around me, I'm not hurting other people, I'm actually living in peace and harmony with others, then this is something that really is an invitation to look at. And we can look at this within culture. We can look within the family system. Look at your family's rules that you grew up with. And how did those rules, even within your own family, play out in your life about judgment, about this is how it's supposed to be? Because there's so many ways in how it could be. It doesn't always have to just be black or white. It's not black or white. It's never been black or white, right? There's so many different colors that's also available. And it's not just gray, it's rainbow. It's the whole color palette, right? So this is an opportunity for us to begin to look at these judgments. And we look at them in these fractals. How have I been judging others? How have I been judging myself? My significant partner, my family members, my community, my state, and we look at this, and we can go out into these different groups, into our government, and look at how our government is judging each other on both sides. Oh my gosh, the news is just too much sometimes, right? And when we become aware of this, we wake up to it and we recognize, wait a minute. The world's changing, and I'm one of those. I'm a world, you are a catalyst of change. You can take this information, bring it in, and begin to inspire others, one person at a time, or few, or many, right? So we're looking at how we begin to move ourselves from I want for myself, or I want for a significant group of people, right? And this is even the 1% and all the things, even when we look at, politics and corporations and big business and all those things, right? Like we can look to see, who's, who gets to have the cream on the top, and everybody else, gets what they get. And sometimes you have to fight over it, right? So this is an invitation to look at you, yourself. Who are you? And where are you walking between this Ahrimanic force of judgment coming down? I'm going to have it like come down here. And then this Luciferic force here of temptation. And our main goal as spiritual, as we evolve ourselves spiritually, consciously, and those two words are synonymous, as we walk through the middle. How can I stop judging others? Because there's no real right or wrong or good or bad. In the bigger perspective, and again, we're going to jump deep into that conversation. I'm just introducing these concepts for those who are newly coming into them. So with this, I'm going to invite you to connect in. At the end of every episode, I like to do a connection point within yourself. So if you could close your eyes and take 3 nice deep breaths, letting go of everything. If there's any part of this conversation that has triggered you or activated you in any way, just see if you could let it go and just be informed with this information of, wow, there's these forces, and these forces are actually spiritual forces that have a purpose to grow us, to be better people, right? So with your breathing, go ahead and bring your attention inward. You can bring it to your heart. I like to land in the heart. And I invite you to look at where you might be judging others, where you have a belief maybe that your belief is right and other people's beliefs are wrong. And there's so many cultural issues coming up in the news, media. And I invite you, if you can, to let it go. To come from that place of the spiritual teacher that says, you're all on your own journey. We're all human. Each one of us a very unique journey at that, right? And then I let it go. Just let it go. I also invite you to take a look at that inner lower ego of yours. Is it impacted by that Luciferic force of selfishness? And you may not have that. Not everybody has that. We all definitely have aspects of the Ahrimanic force. Many people are growing that selfish ego into that selfless love space, allowing others to have as well. So I just invite you to look at yourself. Where are you on your journey? Where are you in your wants? And are your wants only for you, or are your wants actually wants for others as well? And this is an exploration to take into your week. Play with this, explore it. Look to see how this has shown up with you, with people you love, people in your family. Even begin to look at this in the media and begin to start to make those connections. Because we're going to dive deeper into that next week. It's always an absolute pleasure to be with you here and walk with you in this connecting point of consciousness. And as we begin to expand, if you have any thoughts, suggestions, anything, if you want to communicate in any way, you are welcome to contact me on my Facebook and my Instagram at dragonfly.connected. And then, of course, you are more than welcome to connect with me at my website at www.andreadragonfly.com. And you can also .connected, all of that. And I'd love to see you there. Have a wonderful week. Thank you. Stay connected.
This has been Connected with your host, Andrea Dragonfly. Join Andrea each week on an extraordinary journey, exploring the consciousness of energy and how you are connected. Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network.